Welcome to episode 4 of March Malcontent. We're going to start off with Rosalina and Luma against Mii Brawler. Alright, looks like we're going to be on Yoshi's story. A stage that's very similar to Battlefield, but it does have those slopes at the edges, and of course a solid wall at the bottom, which, depending on your character, can actually make a pretty big deal. Luma getting stuck near the bottom of the screen and finally getting, I want to say KO'd, but he sort of just fell to his death. Rosalina making it back to the ledge. That is something that a lot of real players have difficulties with. The easy way to think about Rosalina's recovery is that you get to pick a direction, either up or to the side, and you kind of have to just commit to it. I will say that her... Oh, Mii Brawler does not grab the ledge after that. Rosalina's up special is actually very difficult to be reversed and still grab the ledge when you're directly below it. I think that's mostly due to the actual timing of the move. Following up air past the ledge actually worked out for Rosalina that time. Mii Brawler showing off all of the special moves I gave him. Mostly for all the Mii sets, the Miis were given moves that help them recover more, because that's something that the amiibo definitely can have a hard time with sometimes. So for Mii Brawler, that basically means you get the side special that helps you recover, the down special that can help you recover. I don't think the amiibo is super great at using it for that though. And the up special is the uppercut one, which is good enough recovery, but also it can kill people off the top. Usually you need to combo into it, so I kind of just have to hope the amiibo thinks to do that. There, if it had connected to Rosalina, it probably would have actually KO'd her, but Luma came in to save Rosalina there. That is something that's interesting about Rosalina. She's similar to Ice Climbers in that there are two characters, though with Rosalina, the Luma is very much different from Rosalina. However, that does still mean that sometimes you can hit one of them and then the other one will save the one who got hit. But in Rosalina's case, that usually means you hit Rosalina and she gets bailed out by Luma. Playing on the top platform, Mii Brawler just kind of standing in place for a couple of seconds. Eventually gets hit for his hubris, I guess. Trying to get something off of these up airs. He keeps landing all the weirdest hitboxes of them. Makes it real hard to juggle him, Rosalina, like he seems to be trying to do. Gets that low, recovers past the ledge. That is something you can do. The general key for recovering past the ledge is that if you hold away from the ledge, you won't grab it. So if your up special has a hitbox, you can do that specifically to make sure that you hit your opponent. And there are some characters who will have a very high-placed hitbox, so you can actually hold away from the ledge for a second to make sure you hit your opponent away from the ledge, and then you stop doing that so you'll actually grab the ledge. Depending on the character, it can be pretty nice. Forward smashing Luma, that's just going to kill him right out. Luma does have his own set of mechanics to make sure that, well, he functions, I guess. But it does also mean that he can be killed. You give him a certain amount of knockback, he will go into what is effectively a tumble until he lands back on the ground. But if you put him off the stage instead, he just tumbles into the bottom blast zone. Both fighters struggling to hit each other again. That just kind of happens in these tournaments. Mii Brawler barely grabs the stage. I was actually skeptical on that one. Gonna have to recover again. Rosalina, instead of going out with her forward air, which is actually usually really good at edge guarding opponents, tried to use her side special. And Mii Brawler, I know I gave him all the recovery moves, but he didn't have enough to actually make it to the stage there. Which means you will be seeing Rosalina in April Anger. And for our next match, we have Villager against Corrin. Alright, let's see how this unlevel terrain is going to affect Field of Battle. Corrin already getting an unfortunate trade with a rocket to the face. Not something I'd recommend in real life. Or I guess I wouldn't particularly recommend it in most fiction either, but I especially wouldn't recommend it in real life. You can see that the Lloyd rocket actually does follow slopes there. There is, of course, a limit, but normally it follows enough that if you can walk on it, you're going to be able to launch it along to hit people with. Oh, and Corrin with the taunt. We really hate to see that. Playing in the corner, and they're just not hitting each other. Villager finally gets an attack off. Corrin's off stage. Air dodges through the pellet. That's going to enable her to live another day. Or at least another minute. Almost. That wasn't going to break shield. However, getting hit by a fully charged smash attack at the side of the screen, especially side of the screen so far as this one, is actually really dangerous. Villager was at an incredibly low percent, so it probably wouldn't have been a kill. But even then, since the longer you do charge smash attacks, the more damage and knockback they do, you can get cheesy early kills by effectively getting lucky, or more often your opponent just kind of messing up. Corrin with a good tech there. And again, but cancels it into a down air, almost gets her hit by another rocket. Canceling all of her techs into down air. That one was actually forward air. That was good because it hit Villager. And gets hit with a bowling ball. Corrin has a lot of ground to make up now, with barely any damage to show on Villager. And Villager is doing a great job of just controlling the battle. Villager knows to jump over Corrin's forward smash. Not a trait you always see. Up close Lloyd rocket. So something to know about the move is that it does spawn, and that it takes a second to travel. I'm pretty sure that it doesn't have the hitbox until it starts to travel. But that usually means that if Villager spawns the rocket on you, you're going to be trading with it pretty quick. Because it's not like it takes 3 seconds to actually get launched. It's just enough time to see that the rocket's intersecting with your person, and then it just kind of explodes on you. Corrin loves canceling those techs into down air. That time it actually worked, though. Corrin, not able to make it. Does actually kill Villager with the up special. Corrin's up special is actually, you know, a dangerous move you need to know about. Forward smashing earlier that time, learning from her lesson that if you just hold it, your opponent's going to jump over your head and then smack it. And by it, I mean your head. Corrin going for the record of the most number of taunts I think we've ever seen in one of these matches. That is very concerning. Before now, the highest has normally been 3 or possibly 5. Villager just manhandling Corrin there. He seems to know what she's going to do before she even does it. She gets off stage. She does grab the ledge, and then she goes low. Actually gets her punished by Villager there. If that down air had spiked, that probably would have been the game. Villager's up air and down air, he pulls out turnips, and he pulls out a random quantity of them, from 1 to 3. Obviously, the more turnips he pulls out, the stronger the move is. So it's a little bit of randomness. You never quite know how hard it's going to hit. You still get the hitbox at the same time, so as a player, you're not normally extraordinarily punished for getting the wrong number of turnips. It's a better way of thinking of it is that you always get at least one turnip, and sometimes the move just hits even harder than that. In fact, 2/3 of the time it will. Villager gets footstool, but with his amazing recovery, he's able to make it back to the stage. And a 3 turnip up air is going to finish off Corrin. Turns out that turnips were the superior vegetable. That brings us to Ridley against Richter. I don't know if there are two characters who are closer to each other in the alphabet than these two. As an additional bonus, these characters kind of look like this is how a boss fight would go in one of the Castlevania games. Ridley is just that large, menacing, and scary. He also breathes fire, which definitely helps. Playing around at the ledge, Ridley up special, and Richter's not able to grab the stage. He probably should have tried to grab it with his forward air, which is something both of the Belmonts can do, but the amiibo hardly seem to remember that it's an option. Of course, Richter and Simon, of course, they have enough recovery, and it's weird to say that because they obviously would like more recovery. They have enough to make it back to the stage enough of the time for how good they are as a character. You do usually need to use absolutely everything at your disposal, though. So if you get hit off the side, you usually need to use your air dodge, then your double jump, then you need to grab the ledge. And you can make it back pretty consistently, but also if your opponent does anything to stop you, you're kind of out of resources at that point. It does kind of mean it's very important to grab the ledge with your forward or back air, which Simon and Richter can both do. See, you can see he did it right there. Mostly because grabbing the stage that way is the fastest. You just need to make sure that you don't get intercepted on retrying to grab the stage again. Anybody who has a tether, you can grab the stage with it, and then you have to press A, or there's probably a couple other buttons you can press, to snap to the ledge, and then you get your ledge grab invincibility, and a couple other mechanics start to kick in. But something interesting to know is that if you don't actually touch the stage with your hands, and only with your tether, you don't get most of your resources back. Although I say that, I'm probably going to have to test it later, because I think some characters have different exceptions than others. Ridley's doing a great job of surviving to incredibly high percents. He's actually not as heavy as Samus, but Samus is one of the heaviest characters. Obviously, clearly not the heaviest. That's where you start getting characters like Donkey Kong and Bowser and King K. Rool. But Samus is heavy, and compared to most characters, Ridley is usually heavier than them. Ridley finally gets back to ground level. It's always difficult to fight your opponent when you're on a platform and they're not. Most characters simply do not have moves that can go through platforms like that. Ridley is getting these techs, but his body is so large that Richter is hitting him out of them immediately anyway, and he gets an up smash. That's going to end that game. You're going to be seeing Ridley later. And here we've got Robin against Kazuya. So every year when I retrain the 4 lowest amiibo from the May Malaise tournament, which is the post-season, I always give them a training buddy, which is effectively an amiibo who I designate that they need to be able to beat at least once to prove that they have improved as a character, and that I'm not just somehow making them worse every year. So Kazuya was last year's training buddy, and man did he perform well. He gave a couple of the characters a very hard time. Just something about his character means that he really doesn't have too many low points. So he was very consistently performing, and also sometimes he'd randomly get kills that he maybe didn't deserve. Not to say that he doesn't deserve any of his kills, but he got a lot of kills by trying to recover back to the ledge with his up special. Also, as a character who's he's a heavyweight. He hits really hard. He has a little bit of armor. That didn't usually come up too much with the amiibo, but it is something he has that is to his benefit, so you have to watch out for it every now and then. Robin almost connecting the forward air to kill Kazuya off the side. And Kazuya kills with his up special. I was just talking about that. It is probably his best aerial KO option, which is interesting because most other wing flaps don't actually deal damage. Kazuya keeps landing with down air. It's putting him in a world of hurt. Up air actually not killing him, even with Robin's Levin sword. And then L Thunder kills. Alright. Has Robin in the corner? Probably should have gone for, I would just, off the top of my head, his jab attack, because it has 10 hits and deals like 50 damage if you hit all of them. Normally you can SDI out of it, and that's going to kill Robin again. This is starting to look like it's going to be a really quick match. Kazuya gets sent really low, really far out. I believe he used his double jump. His recovery is just enough to make it to the stage. There's his jab attack. Robin shields part of it. Something you should know, though, is that you can't shield the last hit. Kazuya avoiding getting spiked by one of the hits of Elwind, and then he spikes Robin in the very depths of the bottom corner. Well, that was a very quick match. You're going to be seeing Kazuya in the tournament. Alright, looks like we've got Ike against Palutena. Going to be on Battlefield this time, with the music that plays when you fight Galeem and or Darkon. Yes, he's a character in a World of Light, so I guess spoilers on a 7-year-old gameplay feature. This is mostly notable because I think I'm probably going to have to turn down the volume for it. It's a very intense song, and I do normally try to balance the audio in these matches. So if it ever sounds like the hit effects suddenly get quieter, that's usually because the background music is not quieter. Although I will say, I do enjoy that we actually still get to use the background music. A lot of Smash Brothers content that you'll get to see, they turn off the music entirely. And I understand why. If you're making a lot of edits, it doesn't make sense to have the music in there if you're just going to have to cut it out. But also, this game has a lot of music, and it's a lot of good music. So I kind of feel like it's a shame to just cut out, it's like 1,000 songs. So you won't see it in online media content. If you're watching any tournaments, they have to turn off the songs because a couple of them can get copyrighted, which somehow I've managed to avoid. Ike does not get the tech, barely misses the ledge. That's probably going to catch him the match. Cost him the match. He probably could have made up the difference, but he's just taking too many hits. Does get Palutena with the limit of the forward, with the very edge of his forward smash, though. So that's at least step 1, but he has steps 2 through 7 if he wants to actually win this, which is going to be really tough. Gets put off stage, and I believe his jump just got stolen. He takes Palutena out with him, but she had an extra stock to spare, so she can afford to take that. Alright, we've got Daisy against Ryu. Looks like we're going to be on Peach's castle. How fitting. Well, for Daisy. And almost She didn't seem to realize how high she needed to jump to get over that wall, though. Hovering just above the platform, and actually did help her avoid Ryu, but it's more of a short-sighted problem, because once you land, then you have to deal with not getting hit? Punched in the legs, I guess? Ryu were having a real hard time landing, especially difficult. Daisy not able to recover out of that, slowly drifting off to her death. Daisy with a great tech there, keeping her in the fight. I guess more it's good for keeping up your momentum, which is a weird term because it's not something that normally actually... Well, a lot of attacks just came out right there. Momentum isn't really something that you can actually measure or consider in a match. But it is weird that... And Ryu with a great cancel there. It is weird that the effect it actually does have, normally on real players, where if you are struggling in a match, you start to feel it, and that will affect your performance. Whereas normally if you are doing great, getting a lot of, say, hard reads on your opponent, getting a lot of combos, getting a lot of damage, setting up for kills, obviously that's great, and if you keep doing that, then you just win. Because your opponent doesn't hit you at all, what chance do they have? So in a real person setting, you want to keep that up because it will actually affect the mental performance of your opponent. Whereas in an amiibo setting, it doesn't really matter. The amiibo isn't going to change their performance based off of how well they've been doing the last 30 seconds. Daisy actually was able to get a neutral air out before Ryu canceled that move into a head open. And he canceled that move into Daisy falling off the top of the screen.
Has just begun.
Here we've got Snake against Mii Gunner. So unless something comes out in the next couple of days between filming this and getting it posted onto the internet, Nintendo is currently in a state where they have announced that a Switch 2 is happening. We don't have a lot of details on it yet, but we do actually know that it is going to exist. It's going to have backwards functionality with the Switch, and as a result of these things, people are starting to talk about what's going to be the future of Smash Brothers. Now, obviously, I'm no representative for Nintendo, or Masahiro Sakurai, the guy who effectively pours his heart and soul into each one of these games. So I can only speculate about what's going to happen. It is interesting, though, seeing a lot of people's ideas. Mainly the thing I find most curious is a lot of people are claiming that they want fewer characters to be in the game, which is really interesting to hear someone say, alright, for the next game, I hope they don't have this character. I don't know why you would want that. First of all, on a simplistic level, having more characters is just better than having not more characters. I can only imagine some of them are... Snake does not hit his C4, he's not going to make it back. Some of those opinions are probably out of a grudge for a specific character. It's either that or they are hoping for a different specific character to make it into the game, and they know that their chances are higher if other characters don't make it back. I will say that I particularly don't expect this to happen. There may be some characters who do have to get cut for one reason or another. I'd say that the most likely would actually be characters who are not owned by Nintendo. Then you get legal concerns that start making it in. I mean, already you can see that on characters like Cloud and Sephiroth. They have 8 playable outfits, but they're all effectively black. For both of them, actually. They're black, very dark green, very dark blue, maybe very dark purple. Almost as if Square Enix told them, alright, you can put them in different colors, but this is the available bandwidth of colors you're allowed to pick from, and it wasn't a very large color swatch. So some characters may not make it. I would expect that some people are going to be invested in getting every character possible into the game, if for no other reason than, first of all, they have amiibos of all the characters, which means that any character that doesn't make it in the next game, they will have a physical amiibo, which intermittently can be sold on the Nintendo website, that will not be in the game. They did add characters that weren't in Smash 4 later as DLC, which is the thing that happened. That's a lot of history I'm not going to go through right now. So that is a possibility, but I would honestly think that it would probably be easiest to just add some more stages and characters to Smash Ultimate. It would also be easier with all the licensing characters as well. I would just think that that might be the direction they'd take. Already Nintendo's in a position where they don't really need a new console. Mii Gunner's going to bounce off the bottom. I guess we're going to continue this conversation in the next match. Final match of the video, we have Isabelle against Yoshi. We're going to be continuing our conversation from last match, so if it doesn't make sense, that's why. So, as we left off, Nintendo is in a position where they don't particularly need to make the next console. Obviously, they're making it, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't. But from an outside observer's appearance, it seems more like they're making the next Switch 2. They're making the next console because it's about time for them to make another console. Normally in the past, they've made consoles when it felt like the current console was lacking in something. For the longest time, it was actually just increased performance of all the hardware. From the Super Nintendo to the N64, there was actually a wide gap. Obviously, the N64 could run fully 3D games. The Super Nintendo did have a lot of really impressive tricks to make things seem to be three-dimensional, and a couple of tricks to actually make a couple of things three-dimensional. But the scope of games that could use those was a lot less than what you'd see on the N64. So with the Switch to the Switch 2, Nintendo really didn't have the huge thing that was missing. It does seem like it's going to be a great upgrade. I know that I'm probably going to get one at some point. Don't even know when it's coming out though, so I don't know when that's going to happen. But it does seem like it's more of something on the to-do list. They need to make a new console at some point. But they don't need to do it because of outside competition. Xbox has effectively pulled out of the console race, which leaves Nintendo and PlayStation has a habit of shooting themselves in the foot whenever the going gets good. And on top of that, Nintendo and PlayStation probably shared the fewest of its consumers. Nintendo is the console where people buy it because they want good games, and PlayStation is, especially recently, marketing themselves to having the biggest, beefiest console. And now that they're competing with Nintendo, who is kind of bragging that they have a console you can take on the go, it even supersedes smartphones and smart devices. Making sure that your thing is the biggest refrigerator out there doesn't seem super valuable. Just, some thoughts. Like, Switch 2's coming out, it's not particularly rushed. We have a similar length between consoles from when the Wii and the Wii U came out, which Nintendo was in a pretty similar situation. When Wii's came out, they were the first console that you just could not get because they were all sold. Like, obviously, at various market times and pressures, it could be hard to get other consoles. But for Wii's, it was the unprecedented, you can't get this because there aren't enough of them to go around. And then PlayStation tried that, but I personally think they tried that with artificial scarcity, and as a result, no one got their console. and as a result, no one really got their games. To this day, there's fewer than 20 PlayStation 5 exclusives. Whereas Nintendo Switch, I would not be surprised if it's over 100. That's not including that the Switch seems to be the perfect place for indie games to just thrive. Really, the only time the Switch seems to struggle is large third-party games that don't optimize things well. I still remember to this day that when Nintendo was running the limited time trial for one of the NBA games, that the file download size was like 60 gigabytes, which was actually pretty hard to get to fit on my system, and I only wanted to play the game to get the silver points out of it. With a lot of their other game trials, I'll at least try out the game to see if maybe I like it and possibly would be looking at buying it in the future. It's kind of what the game trial is for. But with current year play as famous National Basketball League players, I wasn't particularly interested. They make one of those every year, and I haven't been interested for the last 15 years. But also I had a hard time getting the game physically to fit on my console. I had to juggle games between the console and the memory card I had inserted in order to squeeze out enough room to get the game downloaded. And it took like 3 hours. All the other more optimized games, they'll take maybe an hour if I'm playing another game that's also using the internet. Anyways, just some thoughts about the Switch 2. We may or may not be getting a Smash Bros. In the future. I don't know how that's going to affect April Anger. Obviously, if they were to drop it tomorrow, we'd still go with the current format. It would not be until the year after that it would start to change. Yoshi's doing a great job of surviving all these random hits. Yoshi's actually a character who's heavier than I always seem to remember he is. I always say, oh, he's not particularly heavy, and then I look it up and it turns out he actually is heavier than average. And it looks like Isabelle won that match. Even if I didn't talk about the match much and I mostly just theorized about the future, I hope you at least found it entertaining, or possibly you slept through all of it. And then, hey, I hope you got to fall asleep better as a result somehow. We'll have other episodes coming out soon, so I hope you enjoy those. Until then, bye.